All right, welcome everyone to Orlando.NET User Group meetup tonight, OneTug. Tonight we have Sam Basu speaking about mobile and desktop apps with Blazor. Just a couple of quick reminders. This meeting is being recorded and it will appear later on our YouTube channel. So your continued participation in the meeting is your consent to be recorded. Tonight's agenda, pretty simple. We'll do the welcome and announcements. Just a reminder, we are recording and it will show up on YouTube in a day or two. And then Sam is going to be talking about mobile and desktop apps with Blazor. I can't wait for this. It's going to be fun. Just a couple of quick reminders. We do ask if you are not asking a question, just go on mute, and to consider turning off your camera if you have one during the presentation. That just helps everyone stay focused on the slides and our presenter. If you do have a question, we encourage you to use the raise your hand feature. Come off of mute if you have a microphone and ask a question when you're called upon. Or if you prefer to use the chat window, go ahead and post your question there. We'll make sure that that Sam's able to see it and answer it, hopefully. OneTug and the Orlando Code Camp Board of Directors is composed of these fine folks here. And just a couple of resources. You can find us online in various locations for OneTug. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, I encourage you to go out to onetug.net/YouTube and go ahead and click subscribe. That way you see this meetup and any future meetups that you might be interested in seeing if you can attend live. Upcoming meetings, we do have one October 28th. Brian McIver is going to be talking to us about supercharged static sites in .NET with static and Azure. So tune in for that if that's of interest. No monthly sponsor this week or this month, but if you or your company is interested in sponsoring us, go ahead and shoot us an email at board@onetug.net and we'll get you set up. And at this time, we'll open the floor up to any community announcements. If anyone is hiring or looking for work, if you have an upcoming meetup, a conference, or a cool open source project that you'd like to plug, feel free to come off and mute and let us know.
Yeah, so I want to point out that October is Hacktober, which means there's going to be a bunch of hackathons. So if you are interested in doing so, you might want to look for a Hacktober opportunity. And if you cannot find one, you can just hit us up, OneTug on Twitter. All Things Open is a good one, so thanks for that. .NET Conf is another conf that's going on, so cool. So Sam has a bunch of different conferences posted on there, and if you are looking for Hacktober opportunities, there's a bunch of places. Remind me to share the links, but you can also look up Hacktober, and you'll probably find an open source project or something that's worth your while.
Awesome, thanks for that. All right. So with that, I'd just like to introduce our speaker tonight. So Sam is a technologist, author, speaker, Microsoft MVP, gadget lover, and a developer advocate at Progress Software. He's got a long developer background and now spends much of his time advocating modern development platforms and tools on Microsoft and the Telerik technology stacks. His spare time calls for travel, fast cars, cricket, and culinary adventures. And he's at Sammy Deep on the internet. So with that, I will turn it over to Sam.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Geez, it's embarrassing when you read out my little bio. I make do. All right, you folks can see me. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
All right. So before we start, I should have asked probably, but how long do you folks normally go? Like, what's the time between when Santosh or Andy tells me we are done with you?
Yeah, like you can 1 hour, 1.5 hours. It depends on some have gone up to 2, but that's just general chit chat. The speaker was done, and we were just chatting about different topics and went on for a couple of hours. So it's completely up to you.
All right, so I'm here in 3 to 4 hours. I'm good. Oh, and I think I lost my right to present. Can one of you make me a presenter?
Yes. Sorry about that. I was trying to make sure not everyone can present, but it looks like only I will make you a presenter. Can you try right about now?
Yeah, it's back. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Thank you. Okay, let me put all of you on a different monitor so I can see you. And you can see my desktop, and that is not my car, if you're wondering. Could be.
I was
Could be
going to
someday.
ask if that's your car.
Could be someday. All right, all right. So thank you, Santosh, and Tim, and Andy, and everybody for having me here. Let's see. Does my computer want to work with me today? Maybe. All right. Okay, so no, I won't keep you for 3 to 4 hours. I'm just glad all of you are here. We all have like screen fatigue at the end of long days. We are all working remote nowadays, but thank you for being here. I appreciate you and your time here. And I wish I could be there in person. Maybe someday. Things are slowly coming back to normalcy. Before we got on, we were talking about some events that are coming up. I was at Orlando is one of those places where you just end up going quite a bit. I was in Dev Intersection mid-year. That was like the first major thing I did, like that was in person after a long time. But I will be there at VS Live in Orlando again mid-November. And yeah, our kid is he's getting close to 6. I think he is ready for Disney. So we'll see when we make that bridge. Okay, so excuse me. Let's talk about mobile and desktop. I'm guessing many of you come from .NET backgrounds. It was in fact. Let me pull up chat window here. It was good to see somebody from Pittsburgh. I actually have a map of where I am from, just a little north of you, actually. All right, so I'm Sam. I am a dev advocate with Progress Software. I'm an old man. I deal with a lot of .NET. I deal with some amount of JavaScript, enough to be dangerous, but it's fun to have all of these choices in our technology stacks these days, and then how we go about building native apps versus web apps and hybrid apps and all that stuff. So we'll dive into all of that good stuff. That's me on the internets. If you need to get hold of me, Twitter, Skype, GitHub, that's me everywhere. So let's start. First up, like we are all living through, fun times. So hopefully you are safe, you're well, your families are well taken care of. You're trying to be as productive as you can. I think we can all give ourselves a little bit more, grace and patience these days. So please take care and pinpoint on the map as to where I'm at. We got 5 Great Lakes up north. I'm right by one of those, Lake Erie. If you are up north, I'm right kind of in between Cleveland and Buffalo. So it's beautiful most times of the year. We do get a lot of like lake effect snow in winter times, but otherwise it's fun. I do travel quite a bit, but none of that's been happening. So yeah, here we are. At least we get to hang out in person. Okay, and I know this is like Santosh and Andy said, this is very formal. We are going to be on YouTube, but right now I'm not on the internet, right? So let's make the most of the hour here. Feel free to ask me anything if we digress, if we end up talking about something else. It's totally cool with me. I do have some slides here, but they're not important. I can post those slides. I want to show you stuff as much as I can. Trying to see if I can get you all a little excited about some of the possibilities. Okay, so excuse my voice. I'm trying to come out of a cold. I think I'm almost over it. But when we talk about Blazor, I was looking through your meetup last month. You also had somebody talk, Swiki actually, she's a good friend, talk about .NET MAUI. So when we talk about some of these things, we are essentially talking about .NET, while we can bring in some JavaScript with Blazor, but this is what we are standing on the shoulder of giants right now. So we are .NET 5, which is that's your production version. Give me a second here. Okay, hopefully that's better. But we are heading towards .NET 6 in this year, November. You're going to see .NET 6 come out essentially in like 2 to 3 weeks. So it's a good stack that we sit on. It's a unified platform. It's not entirely truthful right now to say it's all one platform. With .NET 5, they did a lot of the unification work. You know, we're talking about base class libraries, the things that make .NET function the way it is. So they have been combining a lot of things, like the Blazor runtime is pretty much all baked into .NET now, but the Mono runtime was never done last year. So they're working on this, and it's still not done. And it's actually not going to be done in November, because some of the things we'll look at .NET MAUI wise, it's the tooling takes a lot of work, because it's a lot of different teams at Microsoft that need to come together. So that's coming like in early Q2 of 2022. So that's what we stand on. The tools of our trade are great. It's not just Windows. You can be on Mac. I'm on a Mac today. I will show you Windows as well. I run Windows as a VM, and then I also have a little tower under my desk running full on Windows. So it's good to have the flexibility as a dev, right? So let's talk about like the three things we are talking about when I said building mobile and desktop apps. Those are two very big things. How do you build for mobile? How do you build for desktop? And then what are all the things you're doing for web? Can we bring it over? And again, like I'm an old man, and the web is very cool, right? You go to conferences, you go to, you look at some of the live streams. The web is ubiquitous, it's everywhere. But can we borrow some of that coolness and bring it over to desktop apps? And, don't let people tell you that things are, legacy, because that's running your workflows. Native stuff is it's here to stay. So here's my quick look at all things mobile, right? Lots of options. It's 2022 because it's almost Halloween time, and which means it's almost Thanksgiving and Christmas. No one's working right anymore. But if you had to start from scratch with a mobile app next year, what would you do, right? So you have a lot of choices, and that's a good thing. You can go all in native. You can go hybrid stuff with web. Excuse me again. Hopefully my voice stays with me. It's been a long day. So my point here is, if you are doing web stuff, then keep on doing web stuff. Like, there shouldn't be any reason for you to jump onto the native stuff or .NET stuff, because the web is fine. Actually, a very good set is on mobile devices. You can do mobile web. You can do progressive web apps, and you can do like JavaScript native things, like with React Native or NativeScript, which are absolutely native cross-platform apps. So if you're invested in web technologies, keep on doing that. And we'll talk about Blazor, obviously. If you want to write .NET, if you want to be in that cross-compiled world, then you have some choices as well. Yes, there is Xamarin, which is what like .NET MAUI is evolving into. There is Flutter, there is .NET MAUI, there is Uno. There are lots of choices, and that's a good thing. So pick your poison as to how you want to build for mobile. If you wanted to do .NET, though, this has been kind of our bread and butter. It's the easiest thing to kind of get into. It's native, cross-platform. It's Xamarin. It's part of Microsoft. It's part of .NET. This is kind of how it started. The whole Xamarin movement 5 to 6 years back. This was what was called Xamarin iOS or Xamarin Android. And a lot of people ask, like, if this is changing in .NET 6. It's actually not. This is now just called .NET for iOS and .NET for Android. Nothing's changing. You get to write your C# business logic, and then you get to write the platform heads separately. Hey, John. In this case, like, you're writing iOS and Android, the UI heads by yourself. So there's nothing stopping you from doing that on top of .NET today. But Xamarin Forms is kind of the thing that I'm fond of, because as a .NET developer, I don't need to learn a whole lot about iOS or Android. I can get by writing some abstracted UI code. And the shared UI stack is written in either C# or XAML. You can actually do F# a little bit if you wanted to. Notice the purple and the green and the blue don't entirely go away, because even if you're writing Xamarin Forms in a completely abstracted way, it helps to know the native stack a little bit. And there are times when you actually want to jump in and do something just for iOS, because maybe other platforms don't have it, or vice versa, right? So it helps, obviously, to know a little bit about the native stack. But for the most part, you can get like 99% of your way out there with just writing .NET and XAML and C#. So that's a good story, kind of taking .NET to iOS, to Android, to Tizen if you're doing Samsung stuff. other platforms like Linux and so on. So this is the reality today, and we are kind of evolving into .NET MAUI coming up Q2 of next year. So the reality is things are fine, but there are some pain points. And then the reason I'm talking about MAUI is because like this is tied into Blazor, as you will see really quick. So .NET MAUI is multi-platform app UI. It's cross-platform. So now, in addition to iOS or Android, we get to invite desktop to the party. We get to target Windows, desktop, and Mac. And I mean, there'll be open source, community-driven stuff for Linux eventually. This is nice, and this should give you a lot of confidence. And they're trying to fix some of the things that were a little bit of a pain point with Xamarin Dev today. So you get a better experience with .NET MAUI. The tooling, the single project experience, everything is better. So that's mobile, just in a nutshell. Desktop, and this is the next thing is kind of my beloved thing because it shows my age. Because when I look at this list of things you can do to build a Windows desktop application, based on who you ask, like this is liberating or this is extremely frustrating, right? If you are old like me, you're like, oh, I have so much of choice. But if you are new, just out of college, or maybe you just joined your first job, or you're under a crunch deadline, your manager wants you to do something on desktop, you might be wondering, why do I have so much of choice, and what am I giving up if I choose one versus the other? So yeah, it's a little complicated because you're literally like 20 years into desktop development, and desktop is here to stay. I mean, look at all of your enterprise workflows. How many of those are desktop apps? And sure, the web is great, but some of those things need to be desktop. Just kind of rattling down, going down the list here. WinForms came out, I think, in 2002, if I'm not mistaken. WPF, Windows Presentation Foundation, came out in 2006. So like either of them are like 15 to 20 years old. And what is remarkable is how well these things have aged. You can actually run WinForms and WPF. You talked about the .NET Upgrade Assistant, I think, last month. You can run those things on .NET 5 today. You can run those things on .NET 6 tomorrow. So you're running, 20-year-old tech on absolutely modern runtimes, and you can bring in all the, modern UI. You can have inking support. You can have modern WebViews. Enterprises should not feel the need that they have to migrate or they have to modernize right away. There are ways to kind of keep your ROI in mind and slowly inch towards kind of getting to maybe a modern code base. Universal Windows Platform, again, based on who you ask, it's not doing too great or it's doing fantastic, but that's all things Windows, right? So Xbox, HoloLens, all Windows dual screen devices, everything runs UWP, which is great. WinUI tries to resolve some of the issues with UWP, so it's not so tied to the Windows release and the cycles. So this is more of a end-to-end UI stack, and it runs both on Win32 as well as .NET Native. So store apps, UWP, as well as desktop apps. So a lot of native stuff with Windows, if that's what you want to do. But if you want to do web stuff, which is what we'll get into today, you have some choices. You can do progressive web apps, which we'll look at. Great solution to kind of the lowest hanging fruit to get started with. You can do Electron, you can do Blazor, and .NET MAUI is actually giving you a way to write .NET that is coming in through WinUI to target Windows. So lots of choices. Uno Platform, Avalonia, those are open source choices as well. So again, pick what works for you. What else are you doing so you can code share better? If you're on Mac, again, similar story. You can do native Mac, obviously, AppKit, Cocoa, but you can do Electron, you can do PWAs, you can do Xamarin.Mac, you can do Blazor, you can do MAUI. Now, this is one thing that MAUI is doing well. It's not reinventing the wheel. So for it to get to Windows and Mac, it's actually depending on two things that are already there, which is WinUI, WinUI 3, and macOS Catalyst, which is actually Apple's thing. Apple has a similar problem. Everybody wants to write for iOS. Not a whole lot of, it's a niche audience that writes Mac desktop applications. So they're trying to make your iPad apps work on the desktop, and the bridge is the macOS Catalyst from like AppKit or from UIKit to AppKit. So .NET MAUI actually uses that bridge to make that app run on Mac as well. And again, for the few of you who are hardcore and you run Linux as your desktop, you can reach Linux as well. So lots of choices in terms of desktop stuff, right? Let's talk about web. And oh, Daniel Roth is here. Oh boy, I should have known. I can go and change all my slides. I'm guessing this is Daniel Roth from Microsoft. Hi, Daniel. Forgive me if I say things wrong, but Dan Roth is the he's the PM for all things Blazor and a lot of goodness we see in ASP.NET. So web, of course, that's the cool stuff. That's where all the cool kids are. And ASP.NET is going strong with, we have seen the evolution from like MVC, Razor pages, and now Blazor. So Blazor is obviously, you have to understand why people are excited, because a lot of .NET shops kind of went the SPA route, wanting to get, the benefits of JavaScript and the speed. And they still have .NET in the backend, but a lot of developers would love to write C# front and back, right? So Blazor is, like, I remember like the first time we saw Blazor, it was Steve Sanderson, and then it was MVP Summit a few years back, and Dan and Steve did a session, and it was amazing. Like everyone just like stood up and clapped, and it was, this is real. This is what you can do right now. So Blazor runs server side. If you want, little SignalR bridge, real time updates the DOM, and not a whole lot of things are different. It's the same component model as to what you expect with like server side rendering, but then Blazor can also run completely client side with WASM. There's work ongoing because you are shipping .NET DLLs, and there's work ongoing with the linker, so we can shrink how much is being shipped to the client side. So Blazor actually plays really nicely with, if you have to consider taking it out of, just web and bringing it to mobile and desktop, it actually plays nicely because it'll do PWAs very happily, and it's WebAssembly, so you get performance if you're running fully client side. It'll happily play along with Electron. It plays along nicely with Xamarin and also with .NET MAUI, as we shall see. So here's where we stand. So the reason why I'm telling you all of this is, can we combine all of the good stuff for mobile and desktop and bring in Blazor? And of course we can, which is why I'm talking to you, right? So this is exciting. Some of this is early days, so don't go build production apps yet, but things are evolving and things are coming along nicely. So I think that's all the slides I have. Oh, and before I go, I'm biased, but your apps need UI, right? UI components. So we make all things Telerik for all of your .NET stuff, web, desktop, and mobile. And if you're doing JavaScript, we make all things Kendo UI for Angular, React, Vue, jQuery, you name it. So, and we're not the only ones. So please look around and choose the right UI tools that work for your app, and given everything else that you're doing and the code sharing. So keep all of that in mind. Let's look at some demos. Yeah. Daniel is here to listen to Sam talk about Blazor all day. Oh boy, I have to watch what I say here. No, that's all good. Okay, so let's start with actually let's go back and let's stay here for a second. Let's look at some of these things in action. Let's look at the the native desktop stuff. Let's see how the web comes in. Let's actually start with the web stuff. So I'm getting to Blazor and .NET MAUI, but hear me out here for a little bit here. So the first thing is, if you wanted to write a progressive web apps, right? So I can do a search here. Some of the best documentation on PWA is actually put together by Microsoft, and you might remember, like, this was something Google started pushing a few years back. Apple is kind of grudgingly on board, not quite yet on some things with Safari, but some of the best docs are actually here on the Edge dev tools, because PWAs are very welcome on the Windows Store. Again, you can look up what it takes to make a web application a PWA. It's progressively doing things that makes it a nicer citizen on desktop and mobile. So, offline support, doing things that are engaging, doing things that are push notifications and having service workers running in the background that are doing stuff for you, making things responsive. So all of that is well documented, and there are lots of tools that kind of help you out. Google has Lighthouse, and one of my beloved tools is actually something Microsoft started, and now I think the community weighs in quite a bit. It's called PWA Builder. This thing is super nice because it just gives you a great starting point. So if you have a website today, come here, and if it's public, you can give it the URL. It's going to tell you like, hey, you're missing an app manifest file, so I can't do anything. So that's your starting point. Then let's add some service workers, so you can do some things in the background. So it kind of starts off like you can enter your URL, and it's going to start giving you like a nice starting point for adding JavaScript and service workers into your website, so you can start doing some things progressively. So again, PWAs are great, and we're not going to talk a whole lot about it because it's all web, right? There is nothing new you're doing. This is all web stuff. You're using the web as a distribution model, and it's great. It's not for every situation, but for simple things like line of business apps, and even like some complicated things, if you're okay with web stuff, then PWAs run just purely on the web stack. And to show you some examples, and I'm not trying to show you the UI part of it, but this is just an easy example for me to get to. So this is generic, and just to kind of show you an example, if I go to our like Blazor UI, you are going to see some demos here. And these are all demos written with Blazor, but they're actually all PWAs, right? So this one here, for example, is running completely client-side with WASM. So, and there's UI, but you can actually make this, nice and responsive. If I can, hold on. Oh, you see that install thing? So that says, hey, I'm a PWA, I can install it. And when you do, nothing really like earth-shattering happens. It's still a web app. It just like launches it from the desktop without the Chrome, without all of the drama that your browser brings in. So you can do that. There is a little like download icon there. I don't know if I can. Hold on. Can I minimize this? Yeah, there you go. So and again, things can be responsive as much as you want for desktop and for mobile as well. So again, PWAs play along nicely, and there is nothing new to talk about because this is what you can do today. So if that's what you want to do, that's your lowest hanging fruit, go at it. Again, PWAs can be very good citizens on mobile and desktop. Okay, let's talk about something else, something that's been around for some time, and that's Electron, right? Electron.js. This is Santosh is saying that Microsoft docs are always amazing. Yes, thank you. Because I think, you see the effort that's been poured in with the docs team, and the community supports it as well. So Electron is battle tested, right? This has been around for quite some time. And this is taking all of your web assets, your JavaScript, HTML, CSS, bundling it up and running it as a desktop app. And if you look at some of the apps that you use every single day, VS Live and Slack and Figma, those are all Electron apps. And one of the best things like VS Code, not VS Live, VS Code, one of the best things that VS Code does is how nicely optimized it is. So you don't even feel that you're using a web application. So this thing is out there, and it's it's good. It works very, very well. So can you use this to bring in Blazor onto the desktop? Sure, it'll do any SPA application, not just Blazor, right? So let me show you that real quick. So I'm on a Mac, and I will switch to Windows in just a minute. But if you're on a Mac like me, you have Visual Studio 2022 for Mac. There was a private preview going around for some time, but now Preview 1, the first official bits are out, and it's actually very nice. So let's see if I can find this project. So this is a Blazor app. And while this thing is coming up, we are going to go find that app. It's this one here, and I am going to bring up my terminal real quick. Right there. Okay. So make that bigger. There you go. Okay. So before I go into what that app does, let's actually run it. So here I'm going to do a command line thing called .NET electronize, and we're going to start it up. So what it's doing is it's using a little bit of a CLI thing, and it's got some things cached, like you can see the npm install. So it's going to take a little bit of time the first time you run it, but once you have it, you have it. Okay, so if you have done any Blazor, this looks familiar, right? This is purely Blazor, pretty much the file new template. You got the counter, you got everything working, you got the fetch data that's working. So this is Blazor just wrapped up in an Electron shell and running on a desktop, right? So this is nice. Straight out of the gate, you have a full-on web application that's running on desktop. So what's not to like about that? And you can see like it actually ran on like localhost 8001. You just never saw the browser because we are asking Electron to just come in and do its thing. So how did that work? So let's go take a look at this real quick. So this is a straight up Blazor project. This is absolutely web stuff. You can see all of the, the default things, the pages, the properties, and everything is default. The only dependency that we have is we brought in Electron.NET API. That's just one NuGet package. And with that, we can do some things. For example, we can say while the app is starting up, hold on, let's auto hide this. And let's make things a little bigger so you can read. The only thing we are saying here is Web Builder. I have a dependency here. I want to use Electron, right? And then on my app startup, everything is pretty much boilerplate. All we do is we create a new Electron window, and we give it like our browser window, and we give it some height and dimensions, and we just fire it up. Right, and that's all. And when you install this NuGet package, it kind of gives you a manifest file, which is how it knows, and it's a JSON file on how to launch your app, right? So this is how it makes the link to take anything that's running on localhost and put it inside that Electron shell, and then you have launch settings that kind of tells it dev, or whatever environment you want to run on, what are your environment variables, what application URL it is, and that's it. So it's a nice story. But what's going on here? And actually, here I'll link you to this post that I wrote. So Blazor on desktop, actually. So I wrote this post way early, like earlier this year, start of this year. And the Electron team actually reached out to me because I was trying to compare this to WebViews, which is what we'll get into, but it's just a different game, and we should not blame Electron for some of the things it's doing, because when I ran that app, it did two things that were kind of part and parcel of how Electron runs. One is it right here, it gives you that Node.js runtime. So it is a Node application, and it actually ships the Chromium engine, which is what Edge and Chrome use, both of them. And it's doing it for consistent rendering canvas, right? And it wants you to have that consistent experience and not have to depend on the user's computer and their settings to launch your web view, because it's running inside of a giant web view, right? So these two things make it a little heavy-handed, and this is one of the things like VS Code does so well. Even with all the extensions, it's still very optimized. So you have to watch the memory footprint and the size of the app a little bit, but it gives you like very deep system integration. If you're doing Electron, things like running processes outside of the sandbox, kiosk mode, screen recording, system tray access. So if you wanted those like deep OS integrations, this is still a very good option for you. But you just need to know what you're getting into, because this is again just bringing in those two things. So can we depend on most people to have an evergreen browser? Can we depend on them to have a modern web views? If you can, then the equation kind of changes. You don't have to do things so heavy-handed. You can depend on the modern web views. So the web views, these are essentially web browser components, right? Every mobile OS or desktop OS has a web browser. So if you're on Windows, you're likely looking at WebView 2, which is the latest Chromium engine and browser on Windows. If you're on Mac, you're using Safari, and the thing that you use is WK WebView, which is the Safari web browser component. So everybody has a web view, and it's a matter of using that web view compared to using a full-on Chromium engine. Questions: what are the security implications, considerations of accessing processes outside the sandbox? Great question. you can actually step outside of the sandbox, and I'll actually show you a demo that I think I saw Dan show it one time, but I think it was Elon Litton and somebody else at Microsoft had come up with a fun demo, and then you can actually go outside the sandbox. There are some things that OS is not going to let you do for good reason. I think, Sam, where can we get your slides? Yeah, I'll post my slides. The slides are not super important. In fact, like towards the end, please remind me. I'll post a link to that. But you can get out of the process. There are some things that the OS will bark at you, and that's probably for good reason. In fact, Daniel does a fun demo, I think, where he tries to delete like C drive while he's running the app. So obviously you can't do that. But yeah, there are some security implications. You are escaping the the web sandbox. So it's like everything. There are risks and considerations for you to kind of think about. Okay, so let's look at this kind of a similar app, a Blazor app, now running on desktop, but with a very different stack. Okay, so let me close this, and let's look at Blazor chat here. Windows prevents you from deleting Windows. Yes, it will not let you do that. Okay, so here is a quick little Blazor app, and I'll show you the couple of different nuances you have to this, because there are ways in which this whole project started with like Blazor mobile bindings and what .NET MAUI is doing with bootstrapping the app. So I'm going to show you some of that. But let's actually run this real quick, okay? So we're going to run this without debugging. I have to tell you, VS 2022 for Mac is like solid. I think it's crashed like one time on me after preview 1, so this is actually very, very good. Okay, same exact idea, same. Well, the look and feel is the same, but very, very different game here. Okay, so you have a Blazor app. Like everything under this line is pure Blazor, right? What you get is out of the file new project. But here you have a few more things here. This hello world, like these labels, those are actually native apps, and you have an increment button. What is nice here is if I go down to this counter component, and again, you have probably seen like Daniel or some of the other Microsoft folks show you this, but that this counter here is actually shared. So it's actually a Blazor component that's driving the counter. So you can see the counter go up from here, like from native UI as well as from purely web UI. And to make this a little bit fun, let's actually give you this little URL. And we are off the internet, and we are all friends here, right? So I am trusting you all that you're not going to crash my little server. But here's a little thing for you all to hit if you wanted to. So this is a tiny little SignalR application. So it does a little bit of client side, or I mean real-time stuff across different types of clients, and it's hosted like simple SignalR app hosted on Azure. So this one here is just the web UI part of it. So I can say web says hi. And I can send all day, and you all can do the send as well. You can see it show up, and there are no Javi says hola. There's no authentication, there are no filters, so please keep it clean, keep it friendly. But I can actually also do it from my Blazor desktop application here. So I can go to the chat room, and yes, Andy and Dan Roth is here. Blazor says hola, and that's real time as well. So desktop and web talking to each other real time, and we can do this all day long. So it's easy to understand what's going on, but the implications of this are nice because now we have real web stuff talking to desktop stuff in real time. Okay, desktop apps still rock. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So what is going on here? Let's take a quick look here. Okay. So what we did here was this is actually a .NET standard library. This is actually a Xamarin Forms kind of look and feel. This is what kind of started out, and this is still experimental. It's called Blazor mobile bindings. So this was a way of, bringing in Blazor through Xamarin Forms, right? And you can see how you can do pure native play, or you can do a hybrid play, bringing in Blazor and native UI. So you can see a Hello World app, you can see a to-do app, and it's real nice. If there are some CLI, templates that you can download and get started on. So that's what we are doing here. We are bringing that in, and what we are doing here is when you look at main.razor, this is kind of how your app starts out. And when I showed you the hello world and the increment counter, these are things that are native, like that stack layout. Like I do a lot of Xamarin Forms in .NET MAUI, so this is familiar to me. But this is XAML. If you have not done any desktop stuff, this is all pure native stuff. It's XAML. But then we have this Blazor Web View. This is the one that's giving you that shell of WebView 2 or WK WebView to install and run your entire Blazor application. So this whole Blazor chat web UI, this is everything that's in that web UI folder. And if you have a Blazor project, maybe like some folks on your team are just cool and they're running with Blazor, you can say, give me your whole app. I'm just going to try to shove it in my desktop, and you can. If you are careful, if you don't have a lot of other hooks, this will absolutely work. So within that, everything is Razor, everything is Blazor. So what I do here is in the chatroom.razor, I am actually using the ASP.NET SignalR client, so I can get that real-time connectivity, and we connect up right here. I can run this on localhost, but I can also use the hub connection to that, Azure backend, so I can receive messages from that server, and I can also send messages. This is all real-time SignalR stuff, so that's pretty normal. But what is nice is, since I am coming in through Xamarin Forms and how this app is being loaded up. So if I look at app delegate here, this is how the Mac application works. You'll see right out of the gate, this is newing up an NS window, and then it's actually doing Xamarin Forms stuff. Now this has changed in .NET MAUI. .NET MAUI actually knows how to do this through macOS Catalyst, so you don't have to, but again, you can. And then it's loading up this application and just letting you fly. So what is real nice here is I can switch this up to make the iOS one my startup project, and yeah, iPhone 13 Max, why not? It's iPhone update season. I've had an old iPhone for some time, so I'm like Team Blue with the 13s. Oh, and we have an error. Compile manifest task failed. I have no idea what that is, because I haven't actually run this project in some time. Do I need a build? I see stuff in the chat room. I'll try to get to. And it's great to have Daniel kind of answer questions for us on the fly. So while it's building, what considerations using Blazor Electron? Oh, okay, and that's what Daniel was answering. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm not going to try to fix this because there's a whole bunch of other stuff I want to show you, but again, I'm just using like an older thing here, so I probably ran out of some of the dependencies need updates, so it probably is barking at me. But I can run the same app on iOS, and I can run the same app on Android, right? So that's nice. But what you're not seeing here is since we started up from a Xamarin Forms project, I actually took out the Windows ones because this is Mac, so it doesn't do Windows. But I can actually show you the same project on Windows now, right? So let's go do that. And this is where I can turn off, in wintertime, I can turn off heating in my office because my my VM generates enough heat from my MacBook Pro to keep me warm. I do have a streaming Windows box, but if on a VM, like I can actually just take my laptop and go, and my Windows travels with me. So this is still a little old school. I haven't gotten to Windows 11 yet on this one. I had VS 2022 Windows 1, but I run into, like with .NET MAUI, we have had lots of previews that were breaking, so I actually cleaned up the whole thing, and I'm going to install everything from scratch. So right now, this is just all VS 2019. So nothing preview, all stable bits here. So let's look at the same app here. Is the website still up? let's see how Santosh VB. No, we don't want to do VB. No, actually, there's no love lost. You can still do VB. What's her name? Kathleen Dollar still is fighting the good fight for VB. Yeah, nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with that. Folks want to do F# as well, and bring in these different languages. Why not? So here is. Oh, I'm trying to watch my time here. Santosh and Andy said an hour and a half. Okay, I'm going to try to stay to that. An hour and 15 minutes. How about that? Because I know everyone has to run for dinner and family stuff. We can keep talking about .NET MAUI and Blazor all day, all night long. This is fun stuff. Okay, so let's make things a little bigger, and let's actually run this. Santosh is saying I can still stay as long as you like. Okay. Well, it's going to be kids' bedtime soon, and you're going to hear some of the drama that's usual. Okay, same exact app, right? Without any code changes. Now we don't have iOS, we don't have Mac, but now we're running it on Windows. Again, the same exact idea. You got the native components here. The counter still works. It increments both ways through the Blazor component as well as through this. And the chat room, let's see if this is still working. Yeah, Blazor on Windows says hello and send. That one did work. Okay, and Blazor on Windows says hello, right? So now we got web talking to Windows desktop as well as Mac desktop. And I couldn't show you the iOS one, but you can understand. It'll work on iOS as well. Now, this is the one that I saw, I think Daniel and somebody else do this demo, and I had to steal their code because this is just so ridiculously funny. So take a look at this. This is purely from index.razor. This is like we are well inside our web UI folder, and we are inside actually where's main Razor is how we started, right? So this is the stack layout. We got the Blazor WebView, and everything is running inside of our our Blazor UI now. And if I look at web UI, where is that? Shared pages, index.razor. Okay, so this is the Blazor page that you're looking at, this is the page, like the hello world page, right? So we are purely in Blazor land, and take a look at these 5 lines of code. So we are bringing in, like I didn't even know you could do stuff like this. You're bringing in usemsystem.io, and then we are creating a new file, giving it a temporary file name, and then we are writing to that file as a stream. And we are doing system diagnostics process start. And check it out, Notepad, right? So to Santosh's point in the past, we are going across the sandbox here, and we are waiting for Notepad to close, and then we are reading that message, and we're going to show that message here in this H3, right? So when I go back to the app, do something native, guess what's going to happen? We are going to open up Notepad, because that is our temporary file name, right? So we could say enter something. We could say, hello, Daniel, I stole your code, right? And we're going to save that, and we're going to close it. And now we have it come back in our Blazor UI to say that's coming from Notepad, right? So we did go across the browser Sandbox. And yes, there are some considerations. So this is up to you and your needs. And I mean, at this point, you are a desktop application, right? And especially like when you come to this from .NET MAUI, which is what I want to show you, you are purely in desktop land, right? So there is nothing stopping you from doing all the desktopy stuff that you want. If you are on iOS or Android, I mean, .NET MAUI will give you all of the .NET MAUI essentials. So you have all of the APIs, every device access you need. You have it. Now, what you do with it, it's up to you. And yes, there are security considerations, but it's a desktop app, right? So this is what you wanted when you said, give me Blazor on desktop. You have desktop and the full rights to do whatever you want on it. So this is fun. But before I, let me see, chat room. I know chat room, you're going on a bunch of things. I want to come back to you, but let me show you a few things here before I go back to the .NET MAUI land. So let me close this. Now, one thing is, when you look at all of this, you might be wondering like, oh, geez, this is all looking very web stuff. Do I have to redo everything, all of my investments in WPF or WinForms? Am I going to have to rewrite everything in Blazor? No, you don't have to. You can absolutely take like bite-sized pieces of this if you want and bring in things slowly. So this is how easy it is to bring in web stuff. Just to kind of show you, there's one NuGet package, right? So if you install WebView 2, especially on Windows, you get this one NuGet package to bring in. So this is just a pure WPF app that's running on .NET Framework, okay? This is as old school as it gets. It just doesn't have any UI to it. But I'm bringing in that one, where are my references? Like there's that one WebView core, okay? With that, I can run a WPF app, and this is running inside of a doc panel. That's my WebView 2, and I'm just pointing it to a URL. So what do you think this is going to look like when I run this? Right? It is going to look like a WPF app, but inside of it, it's all web stuff, right? So I pointed it to like Terraria.com, which is our thing. So this is all web stuff, except this little window that tells you, hey, I'm a WPF app, right? So you can do this all day. And there are actually some nice things you can do. Like this one here was just like fire and forget. Oh, where did Visual Studio go? Okay, so if you want to look this up, so let's do WebView 2 on WPF, I think. It doesn't need to be a one-way street, right? So yeah, I think this is the doc. So install WebView 2. There are things you can do on that WebView 2, right? You can listen to some events on that WebView 2, and especially you can like add on to navigation. You can navigate when the user is doing so. And I think you can actually interact a little bit with some JavaScript. So there are some events that you can listen to from the WebView, from your WPF code, right? So you can do some interaction, but if you like literally had some, internal web app that's running, or maybe even external, and you just want to kind of put it in a WPF app, just use the WebView, and you got web content right away. But here's the thing, it kind of looks like web stuff, right? And that may be not something what you want. So this was something I think Daniel and the team did during the last couple of releases back. So let me show you how to kind of really embed this like Blazor, where like in this mode, like Blazor stays as a separate project maybe that somebody else has. You're just bringing in the folder and you're just trying to do it. Or you can actually build for Blazor and the Razor syntax right inside of your WPF project, right? So let me show you a different iteration of this. So this one here is a Blazor, it's a WPF app, but it's running on .NET 6, right? So it's gotten the latest runtimes going for it. But now you can actually do things where if you strip out all of the CSS, right? If you take away all of the things that come with it. So main Windows YAML, this is nothing new here, right? So you got the Blazor web view, but now we are not just pointing to just a URL. Now we're saying, hey, I want you to go to this index.html, which is a local thing, but inside that page, I can have CSS, I can have whatever else, but I actually want you to render this component that I have, which is actually my Blazor component, right? So that's all you have to do. And then you do need to do a little bit of manipulation. Sometimes like the runtime doesn't find exactly where the counter.razor thing is, so you have to initialize that. But once you do, this is all Blazor stuff. This is all Razor's rendering engine, just the Blazor components exactly as you expect. Now, without any type of CSS, if I go ahead and run this now, this one here doesn't look like web stuff at all because I've taken out all of the CSS. And now you have a counter, which is literally the Blazor component, the counter component, but it looks very much like desktop, right? So if you wanted to do Blazor inside of a WPF app that's running on .NET 5 or .NET 6, you can do that, and you can make it look like however you want. You're just code sharing. You can take the same components and now run them on your web application if that's what you want to do. So a great way to kind of start sharing some code here. That was very neat. Oh, thank you. Okay, I love Blazor. Yeah, a lot of people love Blazor for good reason, right? Okay, let me show you how this is evolving a little bit more. Let me see, do I have anything else on Windows to show? Maybe I'll keep Windows alone. But let me show you .NET MAUI, right? So .NET MAUI, where do we start? We are at preview 9, which came out last week. Yeah, Yeah, last week. But this one here, so come .NET 6 in November, and that's November 7th to 9th, by the way, .NET Conf. Streamed 3 days nonstop from Channel 9 Studios. Daniel, I'll actually be in Seattle if you're hearing. I would love to hang out with you and ask you a bunch of questions, but it should be a lot of fun. So what's coming to you in November? .NET 6, right? So the runtime, the unification story, all of that is done. And we also heard the announcement that VS 2022 is coming, right? You kind of saw the writing on the wall, like with .NET MAUI on Windows in particular, like depends on VS 2022. So it does need the thing to come along before .NET MAUI is shipped. But .NET MAUI in particular has a lot of different hooks, right? For the longest time, we depended on Xcode 13 and iOS 15 and macOS to kind of get their act together. Then we have to depend on WinUI 3 to get their act together. Then we have to depend on a hot reload to come along for all things .NET and XAML. So there are just like way too many dependencies. So the tooling for .NET MAUI is playing catch up. So .NET MAUI is shipping slightly later on in Q2 of next year. But again, this is a good thing to kind of take a deep breath and do things right for the first time. But you'll notice right out of the bat, you have iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows, right? So what is that doing? So if I go out here to, I keep my CLI stuff here. So let's actually open up a terminal and we can close this. On Windows, you actually have very nice templates. On Mac, you are waiting on VS 2022 to catch up, but CLI is what works everywhere, and it's great. In fact, on Windows, VS 2020 uses some of the same CLI commands just behind a GUI. So if I do a .NET, right? If I do a .NET and if I ask it to show you all the SDKs, I in fact had RC, the latest RC bits, but I've taken it off. But you can see like I'm running all the way from like .NET 3 to .NET 6 Preview 1, which came out I think in February of this year, all the way to like Preview 7 and then RC1. And you can actually get the latest .NET 6, and that's going to be the next RC2, and in fact you can get the next one as well. So those are all the SDKs, and you got to love this. Like .NET is not that giant monolithic thing. It's just a folder. You can blow it away, you can re-get it back, you can package the runtime executables with your app, and this is nice. So the other thing you get is if I do a .NET, actually let me clear this out so you see the whole thing. So if I do a .NET new and do a list, then I get all of the things that I can new up, all the .NET apps, and take a look at all the things. I can new up a WPF app from console. It's beautiful. All of your Blazor stuff is right here. ASP.NET, all of the web stuff is here. All of the Blazor stuff is here. That's, you said .NET iOS application. That is Xamarin iOS. That's just now .NET for iOS, and you have .NET for Android as well. And then you have all of the .NET MAUI stuff, right? And you actually see more on the CLI. On Windows, you see like 3 templates. On CLI, you actually see a little bit more. You can do content pages and different types. Comment is a whole other thing. That's an MVU way of doing .NET MAUI, which we won't get into right now. But just check out these two. Like these are the two you must have if you did. Oh, sorry, it's like 8 p.m. my time, so all of my lights went pink. I think you can still see me. Okay, so, and it's actually Halloween time, so they're starting to go orange a little bit, and it's synchronized with our garage lights, and, you know, the fun that you have to have with kids around. Okay, so MAUI and MAUI Blazor, those are the two things you have to have. We like ambience. So those are the two templates that get you all the latest MAUI bits, right? So the .NET MAUI template is the .NET MAUI template. It gives you the MAUI runtime and the app that runs on iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows. But let's look at the Blazor app, right? So let's see how that has changed. So if I go over here to CLI projects and let me do a list, I think it's called MAUI Blazor, if I'm not mistaken. And I can new up a new one just as fine. Yeah, I think it's called MAUI Blazor. So we go to MAUI Blazor, maybe? Yeah, it is MAUI Blazor. Okay, so let's do code dot. So we bring up the app. and we look at it in VS Code. And while it's doing that, before we actually do that, this is the thing you have to kind of remember. Notice how easy it is on VS 2020 for Windows. You have these nice templates, like you can new up a .NET MAUI app, you can new up a MAUI Blazor app right here. We don't have that luxury yet on a Mac, but you can do the same things with CLI. So on a CLI, you actually have to mention the TFM, the target framework, a little bit. So you have to do .NET restore, and then you have to run it with the -F flag, so it knows which runtime you're running it on. Todd, I don't see the .NET list SDKs. We can get together, Todd. Maybe you're missing some of the, like, maybe you have just gotten the bits and not the SDKs. Maybe that could be it. Okay, so yes, I know VS Code, you can't do some of those things, and that's fine. Come on, go away. There you go. So if I go back here and let's do a clear, and let's do a .NET restore. So now I haven't shown you the code here yet, but this is just a pure Blazor application, but now it's .NET MAUI bootstrapping it. So now I can come in here and I can actually fire this up on iOS. Right, so .NET build straight up, but we are saying go run on iOS. So by default, it's going to grab the default, like whatever iOS simulators you have. For me, it always ends up being the iPad simulators, and then you can actually take a look at all of the list of simulators you have, and you can run it on iOS or iPhone OS as a shim. But it's the same app that's running on iPad and iPhone. So it's thinking for a second, and it's going to start bundling the assembly soon. Oh boy, Blazor and Ionic. You're opening up Pandora's box. That's still, the hybrid web. You can still do that. So yeah, you can mix and match whatever you want. All right. Okay, iPad mini comes up, and this is running iOS 15. So eventually, come on back. There you go. Okay, so this is Blazor. Pretty much exactly what we saw with the Blazor mobile bindings thing. That is still experimental, by the way. So is this. This is all still preview. So hold on, and like you can experiment all you want. Don't build like production apps just yet. And I think maybe it's not there yet, but like some of the RC bits for VS 2022, those are actually supported. So you can start thinking concretely about modernization. So this one here is actually not using, like, it's not showing you the native things like the hello world thing. Those have been taken out. But if you wanted to put them back in, you can absolutely render native stuff. But this is all Blazor, right? The same counter, same fetch, everything Blazor that you expect from the web now works on iOS. Now here's the real nice part of it. Without any code changes, let's see if this Mac Catalyst build will work, because the other build that I had did not. So I should be able to take a .NET MAUI app and run it on Mac Catalyst. So what it's doing right now is crossing that bridge through Mac Catalyst and trying to go from UIKit to AppKit and still give you the same web view that you need. So it's thinking for a second, and eventually, oh no, I really have to update a whole bunch of things here. My Mac Catalyst is not ready, which is weird. I have Xcode 13. Something is not right with my setup, so I can't show you this. My apologies, but you could run the same app on Mac, and you can run the same app on Windows. So trust me, go get the templates and do it yourself. It'll work. And what you're seeing is like some of the things that are like so, like they're new. They're in preview, some of the bits, especially with Xcode just getting settled in. There have been things that have been churning a little bit, but you see the promise, and you get the latest bits on a fresh machine, and everything should be working. So let's take a look at the code here. So what did MAUI do? Out of the gate, you see that everything here is under platforms, right? So Android, iOS, Mac Catalyst, and Windows all together. We used to have a thing where WinUI, just the way it is shipped and bundled, especially for the store, it used to have like MSIX bundling, and that needed to be a separate project, but they have gotten rid of that now. So it's now all just a single, like it's truly a single project, right? And what is nice is it starts sharing a lot of, like, if you were doing straight up native stuff, then it starts sharing out your fonts, your images across platforms. So the build is actually smart enough to realize that you're doing a build for iOS versus Android versus Mac Catalyst. So everything is here. And then beyond that, you have pages and you have resources, you have properties, and you have www.root. So everything looks Blazor-like because this is meant for Blazor. So if I show you app XAML, this has got nothing. This is all XAML. And if you don't want to touch this, you don't have to, right? This is all kind of the .NET MAUI bootstrapping. App XAML, this is going to be, again, main page. It's just pointing to the first page of your app. But main Razor is where you come in. And this one tries to do a bunch of things, but says, no, I'm going to let you just hand you off so you can actually render through the main program.cs here. This brings in, it does use the use MAUI app, and it says, hey, I want to use a Blazor web view, right? And it's bringing in the weather forecasting, but everything that you see on the app is actually coming from index.razor. This is Blazor, right? And let's see, where can I show you? No, this was the one that I was trying to show you. So this one here, you'll notice that it's bringing in ASP.NET Core, that same web view. Now it's a part of the MAUI assembly because that's how we're bringing it in. But right in here is your Blazor web view, right? Same exact thing that we did on Windows and on Mac. And we are saying that's the index HTML page, that's my first view, and I want you to render this component, and off you go, right? So your routing and everything will be the same within that Blazor land, within your Blazor app. And if you wanted to mix and match, like right here, if you want to come in and render a stack layout or a grid or a native label or drop down button or whatever that you want from .NET MAUI land, which is purely XAML, you can mix and match. You can still do that. But this template to get you started, this is all Blazor, right? So if you don't want to deal with XAML at all, and if you just want to do Blazor, start here and you never have to look at this. Just do everything that you want in your web UI, in your pages, and all of your Razor syntax, everything is Blazor from that point forward. So this is what is coming for you in Q2 of next year once .NET MAUI hits GA. But you can experiment with this all you want. Lots of things in chat. We can actually have a full-on conversation with all the things that chat has asked, and maybe we should do that because this will be interesting to go through. Now, let me share some opinions here, which may not be something that you all agree with, but as an enterprise, and I think this will be an important thing for all of us to juggle next year. A lot of enterprises are looking at .NET 6, right? It is LTS, it's long-term support, and for some reason enterprises might not be, and for a lot of reasons enterprises might not be wanting to jump ship to the every .NET, but they want to get to the LTS. So a lot of people are thinking about modernization. A lot of people are thinking about, how do I bring in all of this Blazor stuff? How do I migrate my XAML forms to .NET MAUI? The upgrade assistance will really help. In fact, I do a demo where I can start a WPF app on Framework, use the upgrade assistant to make it run on .NET 5, then I make it run on .NET 6, because that's just like changing the TFM, and then I can embed all of the Blazor stuff, right? So, WPF old school stuff and WinForms, you can bring them all over and embed stuff if you want, Blazor WebViews inside of WPF and WinForms. The important considerations is this is new, and again, I'll be honest, I actually just had a call with a customer this week, and it's a, sorry if I'm just rattling off here. They have a very, very involved WPF app, right? Right now, it's all WPF, runs only on Windows, and it's a financial services, it's a fintech firm, and it's a very involved WPF app that uses lots of different grids, and they actually have multi-window support. So they actually spawn off different windows, each of them with grids, and then their employees or stock traders have multiple monitors, and they have each of those windows running grids, and the grids are being fed real-time data all day long. And it's just something that's very heavy. It takes a lot of memory, and they're trying to make that work on a Mac. So they were asking about .NET MAUI, and we're like, yes, you can do that, But again, very early days. So like take bite-sized pieces. You don't have to like kind of throw away everything that you have and kind of jump into this. You can slowly start, migrating your apps. And some things will be considerations. Like I think we can go back to some of the Q&A. Santosh was asking about, security. Memory is another one. Like every time we, this Blazor web view, it's a web view. It's rendering the web view. But what if .NET MAUI eventually has like multiple window support? Then every window and every web view that you spawn off, is that another Chromium process, or is that out of process? So there are lots of considerations, a lot of things that are new, but it's exciting that you can do this. You can bring in Blazor. You can. If you have investments in JavaScript, by all means, go write JavaScript. In fact, some of the latest things you will see from ASP.NET Core, like you can call Blazor stuff from JavaScript, and you have been able to do the JavaScript interop before, like calling, Blazor calling into JavaScript. You can do that now. You can do the other way around. So if you are invested in like JavaScript SPA technologies, keep on doing that, and you can bring that to desktop if you want. But if you want to do Blazor and do .NET and C# front and back, now you have a way to bring it to desktop very comfortably, and to mobile for that matter. So Tim was talking about, the upgrade assistant. Yes, Swiki and Dean did a good show. What else? I'm already talking for an hour and 15-20 minutes. I can show you much more of the MAUI stuff, but that's again very, very XAML-ish. But Blazor is here to stay, and maybe we should go talk through some of the Q&A that we had, because I don't have any more slides, because these are, so again, going back to this, take a look at all the things you have right now as options. Okay, pick what works for you. Unlike, or let me rephrase this. If you are not working in like a startup, or like you're dedicated to just one platform, it's more than likely that you're doing something else, right? So to me, like this decision as to how you should build your desktop application comes down to what else are you doing. Like you want to share some code, right? And if web is what you're doing, if your other teams are doing Blazor, then absolutely look at Blazor, look at .NET MAUI and how we can help .NET MAUI bootstrap your app and then bring Blazor in. And that Blazor can talk to all things .NET. It's purely a desktop application, and it can talk to JavaScript if you already have JavaScript things built into your Blazor application. So look around, a lot of options. And what else? The war runs on software. This is an old Microsoft slide as well. Like look at all the ammunition we have, right, to go write amazing apps. So let's go change the world. I'm going to stop here because it's been like 1.5 hours of me just talking. So let's look at Q&A. How about that? So let's fill some things here. Let's have an open conversation. I know we are going on YouTube, but let's have an open conversation. And I don't know if Daniel may be still around, so maybe he can help us answer some more questions if you have any. So let me stop sharing and move my window back so I can look at you all. Okay, so folks, please feel free to turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, and I'm going to read through the lots and lots of comments here. Way too many, but feel free to just come on and just raise a concern, raise your excitement, or like share your excitement, whatever you need. Hey, Sata.
Hi, Sam.
Daniel. Hey, Daniel.
I'll break the ice. Hi. That was great. Wow, that was a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of different ways to do things. Hopefully things will get simpler with MAUI. Like MAUI, I think, really kind of fits a lot of the requirements for a lot of different things. So you can just say, like, just use MAUI. It'll be fine. Like, it'll simplify a lot of things.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, I want to kind of get hold of that code you used for the simple web app that you're showing with the signaler, because I want to add.
Yeah,
I want to see if I can add a map to that, so I can get like people's.
it should be. I'm gonna check real quick. It should be on my GitHub, but if not, I'm happy to put it up. I think it should already be up. Yeah, it's up. Any other questions? And Daniel, thank you so much for tuning in. I know like a lot of this stuff we have all learned from you, so it's probably boring for you to kind of sit through. But thanks for answering all the questions here.
No, it was great. Learned a lot too.
We have a question at the end from Ario. He's asking, how can I secure? It's a pretty broad question, but how can I secure my desktop application using or while using Blazor? I guess is what he's asking. Or they are asking.
Daniel, you go.
Best practices, recommendations, anything of that sort, like documentation.
I assume it's about, like, I mean, there's lots of aspects of security, but if you're talking about like authentication, like how do you sort of log in the user, identify the user from a native client app, that part doesn't change because Blazor's in the mix. Like, remember, if you put Blazor in a MAUI app or in a native client app, it's still fundamentally a native client app. All that Blazor's doing is rendering pixels to a WebView control. The code is still running on the machine, on a device, like on a desktop machine or on a mobile device. So how you think about authentication in that scenario should be exactly the same, even if Blazor wasn't in the picture at all. Like, you do the normal handshakes and authentication flows that you would use if you were just writing a WinForms app or a WPF app or an Android application. So like flows like OpenID Connect for acquiring an identity token for the user, that all applies. The Microsoft authentication libraries that you would use from a native client app to log in the users, you would literally use that same code in a desktop app like this. So the flow is the same. I would say that for MAUI, we haven't done a lot of work yet to sort of make this easy. Like in a lot of the web templates, we'll give you like project templates that you can just hit a button and it'll add some auth for you and you're kind of done. We haven't done that with the native desktop or mobile templates yet. I don't think we'll actually even get that far with the first MAUI release that's coming, Q2 of next year. But I expect that we will start looking at that, and probably not even doing it as templates, but as like a gesture where you can say, like, please connect me to Azure Active Directory and just let me handle authentication for users, and we'll set that up in the templates for you. But while you're having to do it manually, just go look at the native client auth flows that you would see for Azure Active Directory or any other identity provider that you prefer. The code should basically be the same.
Oh, I think Melissa has a question. You can come off mute and ask.
Hi, thanks for the talk, by the way. It was great. It's great to see more Blazor out there and hear stuff about MAUI. I was just wondering, I just recently started a position where we're modernizing older web WinForms application, basically lots of literals, lots of JavaScript in there, and they chose to go with Blazor. So I guess would you recommend that I or someone else on my team might bring it up, but to transfer to MAUI? Like, I know that Blazor is going to, as it stands right now, is still going to be supported going into utilizing MAUI, but would you recommend it for the sake of modernization, or is there something that a modernized front end would get from MAUI that it can't get from Blazor that's kind of a make it or break it at this point, like going into like the middle of next year, if that makes sense?
Daniel, you want? I'll let you speak to this. I have my thoughts.
Was it? Did you say WinForms or WebForms is where you're starting from?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Is it a desktop app or is it a web app?
It is a web app. I'm sorry for saying the wrong one. My bad. WebForms. WebForms,
like ASP.NET on
yes.
.NET framework, WebForms app, and you're trying to modernize?
Yeah, classic stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're, it really depends what you're trying to build at the end of the day. Like, what do you want to achieve? Blazor is all about web. Like if you're trying to build a web app, that's Blazor's bread and butter, combined with ASP.NET Core, right? Like where Blazor was intended to fit in is, in the past, if you had to write some JavaScript and you're a .NET developer, that was a bit of a drag because it wasn't your main skill set. You were having to bridge these two worlds. Blazor gave you a way to write client-side web UI code using .NET. That's where it fits in. And it has a lot of similarities to web forms because both web forms and Blazor are like component or control-based UI models. They're both event-driven, like UI events happen and your control or your component does something with it and renders some HTML. So they're similar in that way. So I think if you're a web forms dev and you go to Blazor, you see a bunch of stuff that kind of feels natural. So if you're just trying to like create a web app, moving from web forms to Blazor might make sense. I wouldn't do that if you're like worried that web forms is like gonna stop being supported, or well, maybe it's not just cool anymore. Maybe we need to move to something else. Like web forms is part of .NET Framework, which is part of Windows, and it will be supported. I'm not allowed to say forever, but as long as Windows is around, it's there. And so you should feel fine being on web forms. MAUI only comes into the picture if you want a native client app. Like, do you want a native mobile app and a native desktop app? Like, do you need more than what the web platform today offers you? Do you want to be able to do native platform things like integrate with Android or integrate with an iOS device? That's when you start looking at MAUI. MAUI's for native client app development. If you're just trying to do a web app, Blazor on the web is certainly one option. It would be quite a bit of work to move from web forms to Blazor. That is kind of one of the tricky things we have today, right? Like there's no web forms in the .NET Core based world.
Oh yeah, that's the move right now. That's actually really helpful. Like that's already, the client I'm working with, that's the move. They've already made the decision to move from web forms over to Blazor. I have a sneaking suspicion that they may want the new hotness, and that's why MAUI. So I wanted to make sure that I don't.
No, you're set up well then. I think you're set up really well, because what will happen is if you move from web forms to Blazor, now you have a whole bunch a web app built with Blazor UI components, and then let's say later they come and say, oh wait, we didn't just want a web app. We want a native mobile app now too. Can you build us a native mobile app? And by the way, we want it to kind of look like this. All this work you did on the web app, we want it to kind of look the same. You say, no problem. I'm going to drop a Blazor WebView control into my MAUI app. I'm going to reuse the exact same web UI components, and I can then light up native platform functionality using .NET and normal .NET APIs. And all that work you did to move to Blazor is completely reusable. That's the nice thing about that move. So I think you're actually on the right track. If you later need to get to MAUI, Blazor is a great path to then get there.
Awesome. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Well said. Yeah, and I mean, we see this a lot. Like a lot of people are trying to, update their web app, and if you are doing just like straight up Blazor, keep on doing that, and eventually, like Daniel said, like if you wanted to hit, mobile and desktop, then you have an easy way in with MAUI. And then and MAUI and Blazor, they're not sunsetting each other or doing anything. They're just like augmenting each other and then working out together. And actually, Andre had a nice question a while back. I saw there are a lot of these different terms that we are throwing around. So what are the differences? Like what does Mac Catalyst mean versus Mac? So it's a very different game, right? So Xamarin Forms had actually so the abstracted UI layer that we use in Xamarin Forms is XAML, right? And then there's a little bit of code that's called the renderer, which takes your abstracted UI and renders native UI on whichever platform that you're running on. It's iOS or Android, but we have actually had it open source, so the community stepped up, and we have actually had renderers written for Xamarin Forms UI, and that render native UI on WPF and on Mac. So those things are still there, and that's kind of where like the Blazor mobile bindings project started. But .NET MAUI actually does a much better job in how the app is bootstrapped, and Mac Catalyst is the Apple authorized way of going to the Mac desktop. So they're just much more optimized ways of reaching the Windows and the Mac desktops. Thank you, Melissa. And Melissa, I'm just like 2 hours north of you. It's nice to see Pennsylvania.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was just down in Florida, so nice to be here.
Gary is asking for desktop WPF. Had, and again, a lot of questions on like WPF. You know, my thoughts are, if you have investments in WPF, right, and WPF is super rich, it's probably the most mature XAML platform that you have out there. If you are happy doing XAML and WPF, keep on doing it. Like WPF runs on .NET 5, it runs on .NET 6. You can do like, you used to be able to do like XAML islands where you bring in things like WebViews and inking support into WPF and have touch. You can do all of that right now with .NET 5 and moving to .NET 6. So WPF is very versatile actually for what it does. But if you are looking to, you know, I'll start an application that will use WPF. Should I rethink and use Blazor? It's really like two very different things. Like, do you want to do .NET and XAML and C# and stay just on desktop and Windows, or are you willing to write Blazor, which is still C#, but that's for the web? And then if you do Blazor, you have a way of embedding that, bringing that goodness into WPF. So Daniel, I don't know if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, if you're really excited about getting to a web app and you want to learn HTML and you want to learn CSS, then sure, Blazor would be a great place to go. But if your goal is just to build a Windows desktop app and you know WPF, and you maybe even have a bunch of WPF code already or the like, I would use WPF. I would recommend using the WPF support in the .NET Core world, like .NET 5, .NET 6 version of WPF, because then you get all the goodness from the modernized .NET platform, as opposed to WPF running on .NET Framework. .NET Framework is what it is, right? Like it's not getting a lot of fancy new features. It's supported and it runs great and it runs millions and millions of apps for millions and millions of developers. But it's not like a source of innovation. If you want to be riding the innovation train of .NET, then you would want to be riding on like .NET 5, .NET 6 version of WPF. That's the one thing I would say. Yeah, so really, I think it depends on what your skill sets are. Where do you want this app to go? If it's just a Windows desktop app, WPF is just fine. If you want to eventually go to web or maybe even mobile and cross-platform, then you maybe might think about UI stacks that will give you more flexibility.
Yeah. When MAUI hits GA, will it substitute WPF? No. Yeah, they all happily coexist. Like, remember, MAUI is the evolution of Xamarin Forms, and Xamarin Forms has been out and about for the last 6-7 years, and we are fixing a lot of the pain points with Xamarin Forms going into MAUI. So nothing is getting sunset or replaced. WPF will stay on for all things desktop on Windows. Like Daniel has been saying, it's running on the latest .NETs. But if you wanted to utilize some of your WPF skills, it's XAML and C# at the end of the day. It's a slightly different syntax and flavor of XAML. Then MAUI is your way to hit Mac and hit iOS or Android. But if you are happy with Windows desktop, then WPF is fine.
I would, if you don't mind, Sam, I would add to that,
Yeah.
that I think we do have a goal, though, that in the future, when you want to build, say, a Windows desktop app, I think it is a goal that in the future, .NET MAUI would be the best way to do that. Like under the covers, .NET MAUI is using WinUI for its Windows UI stack, which is the new, Windows UI stack, fast, flexible, modern. So the goal was to make that thing for Windows development the best option for Windows development. WPF will still be there, and you can still build WPF apps. And if you have existing WPF apps, they're still supported. We have a whole team that even on if you're WinForms apps, we have a whole team that's delivering features for WinForms apps. Those things will continue to exist because we know we have lots of customers building on those things. But MAUI, I think, is really where we're kind of going towards in terms of the vision, the long-term direction. And then you have a great Windows app, and if you want to take it to cross-platform, then MAUI has that capability. Whereas if you built it with WPF, then you decide later that now I want to go to Mac. Well, now you have to do a little bit more work to get it onto MAUI so that you can get to Mac. So I would say it that way. But yeah, there's nothing's going away in terms of WPF and WinForms. But the hope is that the best way to build a Windows desktop app in the future would be .NET MAUI. We got some work to do, I think, to get there, but that's the goal.
Yeah, well, Sergey is sold. It's Maui. I saw one other question, and this may be a little sensitive, but I mean, just for honesty, I will answer that. So there are a few other things out there. Like, I mean, I have mentioned that if you wanted to do like cross-platform XAML, there are things like Uno platform, which is actually like WinUI and running it everywhere. WinUI only targets Windows, while they can take it to other places. There's Avalonia. The thing is, like, these are all great open source things to tinker and experiment with, and they might be perfectly fine for your app. As an enterprise, like I think most people will bet on .NET MAUI because it is .NET. It is coming from Microsoft and all of the engineering that's poured into it. I mean, I know the Uno platform guys. They're actually across the pond from me in Montreal. They're great guys, and the thing that Scott Hunter and other folks get asked a lot is like .NET MAUI right now. It even with Microsoft's all of the I'm speaking here for Daniel and team and everybody in .NET MAUI, you have to go with mass first. You have to get things right first, right? So that is iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. Those are four very big things to bring along. Will we eventually have Linux support? It's a niche group of people who really want to have XAML working on Linux, and yes, maybe eventually community driven. There's already Tizen. If you want to do like Samsung, if you want to buy a Samsung TV and see your apps, you can do that right now with Xamarin Forms and with .NET MAUI. So again, more platforms will come along for the ride, but Microsoft has to deliver on the core, on the mass first.
One of the things that actually we're doing with MAUI that's super cool, it's experimental, but super cool, is there's a library that's being built. Actually, the library is not experimental because it is shipping with MAUI in next year, which is the MAUI graphics library, which is a cross-platform abstraction over just basic graphics capability. It can use the platform's graphics capabilities, or you can I think it has a Skia Sharp-based backend as well that you can potentially plug in. And then on top of that, the experimental bit is using that graphics library to build custom drawn controls that then can now be used anywhere MAUI runs, because it's based on the MAUI graphics library. That is a potential path that we're looking at for getting to Linux, is having our own set of custom controls that will be, pixel perfect and consistent across any platform that you can use then on Linux, or potentially any platform that you want to use. So those repos are public. I'll put them in the chat if people want to check them out, or if they're interested in contributing. That would be cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing I wanted to mention, despite like having so much of choice, like the dev experience, like that's something Microsoft and like the engineering teams care a lot about. And one of my most beloved things coming out of .NET 6 and then the whole tooling refresh is hot reload. We have had like different iterations of this, like for Xamarin, but hot reload is now pretty much consistent throughout all of the XAML stack. Like this is Dimitri Lylin and the team, and it takes a lot of coordination across different teams to get this working nicely in Visual Studio. So if you're writing XAML for WPF or UWP and WinUI and .NET MAUI and Xamarin Forms, you have XAML hot reload working the same way. And we are slowly getting into .NET hot reload, which is not everything, but much of your C# code can also be hot reloaded on the fly. Sorry, Santosh and Tim and Andy, if we completely hijacked what you were planning, but this is good, right? This open conversation.
No, this is good. I think
that was fantastic.
Yeah. I couldn't have planned it better. I'll just put it that way.
Hot reload for Blazor. Daniel loves that question.
Done.
Done.
It's in .NET 6, yeah. We have hot reload. I mean, hot reload for basically all the UI frameworks, right? So Blazor Server, Blazor WebAssembly, Razor Pages in ASP.NET Core, MVC in ASP.NET Core, WPF, WinForms, MAUI, all these things are, it's hot reload is a cross-cutting effort for all of our .NET UI stacks. Blazor WebAssembly does have some limitations because you're trying to like hot reload changes into a .NET runtime that's running on top of WebAssembly inside of a browser, so that gets a little hard. It works only when you're running without the debugger currently. And the runtime is a little bit more limited in terms of the types of edits that it supports to be hot reloaded. It basically only supports like method body replacement style edits. If you do an edit that it doesn't support, it'll just let you know and say, hey, you need to restart the app because that edit, I can't actually hot reload that one. But yeah, for Blazor Server, though, you have the normal hot reload experience like you get with all the core CLR-based workloads. And that's just for the November release. So like as we look beyond November to Visual Studio 2022 .1 or whatever they're going to call it, lots more hot reload improvements I would expect to see as the VS updates start to churn out after the initial release in November.
There's another question: is Microsoft MAUI graphics a way to use Skia in Blazor?
I mean, it's being worked on. That's an indirect way to do it. So the devs that are working on it, they've written a Skia Sharp based backend. Skia Sharp is a .NET wrapper around the native Skia drawing library. And we just in .NET 6 RC2, which released earlier this week, we just announced a capability for Blazor WebAssembly apps in particular to be able to link in native dependencies like Skia and compile it to WebAssembly and then link it into the WebAssembly runtime that runs your .NET code. So you can actually take MAUI graphics on top of Skia Sharp that's got the Skia linked into the WebAssembly runtime and use it all the way down. That's I think being worked on. I don't think I haven't seen that working yet. But the thing that is working is you can just take Skia Sharp directly, reference the Skia Sharp, I think it's Blazor Views package from your Blazor WebAssembly app, and start calling Skia Sharp APIs, which calls into Skia, and do custom drawing to a canvas. That is now working today with .NET 6 RC2. So yeah, you don't even necessarily need MAUI graphics in the picture. Where MAUI graphics becomes interesting is it provides that cross-platform abstraction for doing drawing. To some extent, Skia is trying to do the same thing, but Skia provides its own drawing implementation. Whereas MAUI graphics, by default, it will just use the graphics capabilities of the platform. Like whatever Windows does for drawing, it'll use that. And whatever Mac does for drawing, it'll use that by default. Skia is its own sort of drawing implementation. And you can take Skia and plug it into MAUI graphics as an alternative backend to the platform-provided graphics stack.
I don't want to jinx it, but it looks like we are out of questions.
Or people are hungry.
Yeah,
and tired of us.
I'm gonna stop.
No, this was good. This was good. Great conversation here. I love it.